Hello and welcome to another episode of Alan Writes. This is the Winter of Truth, and it's whatever episode it happens to be because it's 8:30 in the evening, and this is the first chance I've gotten to write. Uh, I broke it from my routine on this, if you can't tell. I'm a little upset about that, but these things happen. I was apartment hunting. It took up a big chunk of my time to do all the little nitty-gritty things that required of it, and it put my mind in a different place. But nonetheless, here I am, dragging myself towards my allocated time to write in a given day. And it's important that you have that sort of discipline, that you proceed through it, that the exceptions are exceptional to this, and that you keep moving forward, even if things are difficult, because that's the way writing is. If you let them be too difficult, you will get nothing done. You will have a whole bunch of half stories, like I have, and they won't go anywhere. So anyway, Finara was giving her thing with the presentation in front of the things with the stuff, and she's got a cybernetic leg that she doesn't trust. And I'm reading through this, and I definitely realize I've got to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff. Because she's arguing that demagnetized will take only a few minutes by. What about the other AT-AT? Was brought down. How was it brought down? How was it brought down? A colonel called out. He sat near the front, too near not to be noticed. Noticed and recognized by others in the hall. How was it brought down? Was it by a harpoon and cable? Was it by a harpoon? No. Finara replied. Our initial assessment of it was a solitary infantryman. Wasn't it? Wasn't it? Colonel had been well briefed. It was also bold to question her like that. It was also bold to question her like that. Interrupt her when she had the floor. Neither Veers nor Tellock seemed eager to intervene, and she knew why. This was a delicate subject. All right. So here we go. This was a delicate subject. I'll skip ahead to humor you. She tossed back his way. Called out. Recognized by others in the hall. His hammerhead skull. His hammerhead-like skull. This was it. The distinctive. It's a possibility we could use him as an alien. I don't know. The Empire doesn't like using aliens, but there's always a few in there just to keep things, looking like they really accept everybody when it's just a few token individuals. who generally don't rise very high in the ranks or have a lot of responsibility, and everyone sort of understands that those are the token few, and really, isn't humanity supposed to be the ones in charge? Oh, empire, empire, empire. I'll skip ahead to humor. She tossed back his way. Saw him glower. But who cared? He didn't have a leg to stand on. This is the images. These are the images from the attack. The holographic graphic display rose up, shifted, reveal a latter part of the battle. On cue, the camera zoomed in and enhanced. Now, zoom and enhance is, of course, a term that it's a bad tech term, and I'm using it willfully here because it's high tech. They have good cameras. The camera zoomed in and enhanced to reveal a lone figure chasing after an AT-AT. Moments later, the figure zoomed up toward its belly. Was pulled up towards its belly. Towards its belly. Clutching something in it. This was all true to an extent. The images had been wrangled from multiple sources to an extent. Have been wrangled from multiple sources. The images have been wrangled from multiple sources and massaged to carry over what only what was safe to show. Zoomed and enhanced, zoomed and enhanced to fit this moment. Okay, to an extent. The images have been wrangled from multiple sources. Moments later, the AT-AT's underbelly exploded. Was lit by a bright white light that competed with the sun on the snow. Secondary explosions followed. The rebel used a magnetic harpoon to carry him or her to the top, to the underbelly. There they affixed a mine. It's going to be a thermite mine. A thermite mine. A thermite mine. And detonated it. She said, "I have seen the debris. I have seen the debris. Myself." She moved the images, overlaid an image of the blast point. It was it was accurate. It was accurate. It was accurate. A rebel had indeed attempted that as much. Had indeed succeeded with this kind of attack. Somewhere in the universe. Somewhere in the universe. How the individual on Hoth had managed it. Well, she had her suspicions. Given that her initial scan of that wreck had been confiscated by the ISB and not released back to Telek and Kuwait yards. Especially given that that she'd seen the footage of the rebel dropping back down into the snow. There were only a few weapons that could crack a hatch open, that could slice open a hatch. There were only a few weapons that could slice open a hatch. Like she had seen. And she'd spent the night in Skywalker's crushed speeder not too far from the impact site. Not too far from the impact site. From the ruined AT-AT. Indeed, had she seen it, she would have preferred to have sheltered there. She'd seen it during those chaotic few seconds after detonating her own hovercraft. She would. But that was luck for you. She thought as she pivoted slightly on her stiff cybernetic leg. Okay. There is, as yet, no technological defense against a rebel willing to die. Willing to kill themselves by setting off a thermite mine while pressing it against an armored hull. Do you disagree, Colonel? The Colonel did not. Kuwait Yards would not be blamed for the destruction, the loss of either walker. The Navy certainly couldn't, since they'd done their part perfectly, except for the unfortunate death of Admiral Ozzel. The troopers of Blizzard Force and their commander, and their well-connected commander, simply didn't have the training. To counter this. And that was Army training. She continued her presentation. No one else interjected much of importance. Then it was Talek's turn to hammer the point home and spread around the blame. Who could have foreseen any of this? No, it was a sad loss, but a grand victory. An imperial victory. Lessons would be learned. And with that, he passed the podium over to General Gears. My fellow officers, Veers said. His voice was a steady one, filled with resolve, filled with deep tones and resolve. She could have do it all day. She To listen to it all day. My fellow officers. Let us consider our losses and strive to reduce them in the future. There are more battles to be won. More rebels to defeat. And I know that all of you will push yourselves toward that end. For the Empire. The Empire. The officers called out as one. Telek. Didn't join in. And neither. Telek joined in late. And Finara not at all. Okay. All right. The meeting broke up. Officers headed to dinner and team building exercises. And strategy exercises, and later strategy exercises. This is in the hollow pits, in the hollow tanks. And later exercises. Finara herself was looking forward some much deserved rest. She'd barely seen anything of planet. I don't know. Maybe it's Coruscant. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's where the Imperial Army has its main headquarters. I will have to research that. And again, we're just going to keep moving on because first draft, fix it later. She'd barely seen anything. And wanted to catch a little bit of that before her shuttle left in the morning. Finara, a moment. Telek called to her. She looked over to find her boss standing next to General Veers, the army commander, stiff-backed, but still at ease. But his legs, stiff-backed, but still stiff-backed, as though his spine were of steel. She stepped over wary of her reverse limp. The damn cybernetic leg always had more energy than she did. It was metal and servos. It's metal and servos, not weary flesh. I wanted to thank you. Mr. Chop. Your excellent presentation, General Pierce said. You were concise and witty. That's very kind. Kind of you. She replied. Not kindness. Pierce replied. What would we call that? Not kindness. An acknowledgement. Acknowledgement. An acknowledgement of your expertise on the subject. Tell me, do you think it will work? Demagnetization? 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 This demagnetization. She thought about that. Telek was holding his breath. But she hadn't been brought forward to lie about things. Not like that. I think the rebels won't use this tactic. Won't use this tactic again. She said, it requires a great many things to go right. The foremost of which is the unexpected. The foremost of which is the unexpected use of it. The rebels, again for a long while, it requires a great many things to go right. The foremost of which is the rebels will resort to other more routine methods until we have our guard down and they can spring it on us again. She saw Telek was staring at her. Just staring at her. His surprise was also that. So apparently her switch of tactics had worked. Veers considered. Yes. You've thought this through. You've thought this through. Put your reputation, if not your career, on the line. Saying it. You nodded. Something. Seeing it in the distance. It is a pity there are not more like you. Beside him, Telek finally remember to breathe. You can see why he said. Yes, I can see. Earth replied. Tell me, Miss Finara, how was the leg? Terrible. It fights me every step of the way. And you'll be stronger for it in the end, Beers said. Remember that. What doesn't kill you is a great teacher of what could. That seems like a Veers thing to say. I'm really riffing on it. I could go through his dialogue, and he doesn't have a lot of dialogue in the films, and anything that I research would be non-canon, and it's always difficult to bounce things off of other writers because sometimes they get things wrong, and of course, well, sometimes they get things right, and you don't see how they got it right. So it's always tricky, but you're going to have to go with your gut on most of this. At least for the first draft. On the second draft, you can polish it up, you can do your research, you can figure it out. What could. So remember that. What doesn't kill you is a great teacher of what could. With that, he gave them both a nod and returned and stepped away. To dinner. No, the simulators first. When he was gone, Telek turned to her. That was risky. Not what we had agreed upon, he said. I made a hard call. Isn't that what you wanted? Is that what you wanted from me? Someone to do that? I know what I said, Telek replied. Can you keep your mouth shut for the rest of this visit? I can and will. I'll be in my room. No, I can't say it. I can and will. Anything to return to work. To get all this behind me. Yes, that, Telek said. You'll be on light duty. I believe you'll be on light duty. Eve, you'll be on light duty for a time. To help you work through the leg issues. I can learn to sit instead of stand. I can learn to sit instead. If it will put me back where I was before. And that's a little bit of the PSD talking. She just wants to forget about all this shit. But it's not going to happen. We stand where we stand. Light duty, for now. For now. Telek said. And moved off. To dinner, no doubt. She headed back to her room. real leg, aching as the other tried to sprint. Kept marching forward. Alright, this is going to be another chapter. I don't know where we're going to go from there. Yes, I do. A rebel is going to contact her, and we're going to see whether or not how she's going to react to that, and whether or not she's going to turn traitor because of how she's been treated. This is part of that is it's going to turn out to be an ISB agent, and Telek's way of testing her to see whether or not she's fit for duty, and also the ISB's way of testing her to see if not she's fit for duty as well. He kind of had to use her for the holographic presentation because she's the expert on the matter, and it would be weird if he didn't. So he elected to use her, saw that she still had some things to shake out, and besides, if she had broken down, they could have blamed it all on her. Let me put it that way. They could have blamed it all on her, and that wouldn't even been an issue. Army prestige would have been intact. It would have been just fine. So it was a win-win for Telek to put her in that position. Either she's solid and stable, and he can trust her to some extent down the line on the next move, and the army takes the hit, or she takes the hit and the army's fine. In which case, while he might look, it might be more in sadness than in truth. In the background, he would have gained prestige for having maneuvered the situation so that nobody was really to blame for the dead, the destroyed AT-ATs and the dead troopers, because there's always more troopers. Really, at a strategic level, there's always more troopers. All right, but this has been Alan Wrights, The Winter of Truth. Hope you've enjoyed this. It didn't come out too badly, I didn't think. Even though my day was bad, the writing went fairly well. If that's otherwise, please note it in the comments, because that's where I will see and how well I'm doing. That's just the way it is. When you need a good edit and good suggestions, they are where you find them, even in random places. So I hope you stay safe out there and take care. Thanks.